we have partnered with the chief and with Madison Heights for a long time on lots of different cases, and we appreciate the relationship very much. They were the first to join this kind of cooperative task force with the sheriff's office to target specifically human trafficking cases. Because in lots of ways, trafficking cases can be complex. They can be going into different communities. They can involve multiple people and personalities. And so having kind of an approach to it very similar to what we do with our narcotics enforcement team or auto thefts and others, where you have kind of a regional group or at least a countywide group of other agencies working together with the prosecutor participating to follow this process through and help us build the cases that can stick. So that's kind of the template this was designed on. It started small, obviously, Sheriff's Office in Madison Heights. We're looking to grow that effort. And I can tell you as of today, Southfield just signed on as well. Southfield signed an MOU today. So we anticipate other agencies will sign on to this effort because we know human trafficking is a big problem. It runs under the radar for a lot of folks, but we know it's a very large problem, and it tortures and subjects people to terrible conditions and terrible moments that they can't ever unlive, and have to have a process once we rescue them from that. How do they process it and move forward with their life? In this particular case, the individual that has been charged by the prosecutor's office, and I'll leave the charges to Chief Assistant David Williams to talk about, but he has a record going back way into years across the country, California, Michigan, involving even kidnapping, drugs, which obviously a common component sometimes of human trafficking is where they use drugs as kind of a control mechanism, if you will, for their victims. If they do what they're told and they do it in a way that they're told, they give them the high that they want, and there's other things that they do, but that's one of the control mechanisms that shows up in his criminal history, dangerous drugs. So his name is Damon Napier. He's from Wayne County. As I said, the prosecutor will speak to the charges. He's charged in two different cases, two different women, one from Oakland County and one from Macomb County, one case in Southfield and one in Warren. And as I said, oftentimes associated with that are they get them addicted to drugs and use that as leverage. And they use a variety of things to keep them in place, preventing them from getting to phones, limiting their transportation capabilities and moving them around themselves, to sell them for commercial sex activities. Oftentimes they're physically and sexually abused and assaulted in addition to that, and then, kind of plied, if you will, with illegal narcotics activity. So this particular case came as a result of an investigation where a missing person out of Madison Heights in 2023 started flowing some information and ultimately revealed that Napier was a drug dealer who had befriended that victim in this case. So it kind of connected some of those dots, if you will. So as I said, multiple victims in this case already have been identified, and the prosecutor will speak to the charges. He's in jail. He's got a total of almost $1 million cash or surety bond, but we also believe there's other victims out there. So hopefully if you're at home and you're seeing this and you were a victim of this individual, and now knowing he's in jail and now knowing he has significant charges facing him, I understand the fear of coming forward. Know that we're your advocate. He's behind bars, and if you're a victim, let's hold him fully accountable and charge him with whatever he has done to you as well. So please come forward if you are also a victim of this individual's behavior. To the charges, we'll go to the Chief Assistant Prosecutor, David Williams.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon. My name is David Williams. I'm the Chief Assistant at the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. I want to echo what the Sheriff just said. The new Oakland County Human Trafficking Task Force is a team effort. This arrest is a great example of what we can do working together, but it's only possible because of the victims who came forward. And so I applaud them for doing that, and I agree with the Sheriff. I hope other victims now are willing to come forward. When I'm finished, we'll read the charges from the document. God, I want to make sure I get those exactly right, so we'll read those for you. Human trafficking is not a new problem, but now with the launch of the task force, we have a new and better resource to address it. There was a time when the criminal justice system looked at the victims of human trafficking as if they're part of the problem. They're not. The task force is targeting the real criminals, the traffickers who are abusing and profiting from these women. This has been a top priority for the prosecutor, Karen McDonald. When she took office 4 years ago, she immediately formed a trafficking unit and appointed Cindy Brown, who stands to my right, to lead the unit. Cindy has 24 years of experience as a prosecutor. She's prosecuted some of the most serious, complex, and difficult cases our office sees. Last year, she prosecuted Richard Coleman, and he's a major human trafficker. She convicted him of 11 felony counts, and he's now serving 75 to 100 years behind bars. Last November, Prosecutor McDonald sponsored a human trafficking training for about 300 members of law enforcement, victim advocates, mental health professionals, and medical professionals. That training has already resulted in new cases being investigated and prosecuted. We know that there are more victims in this case, and we know that there are more human trafficking victims in Oakland County who we haven't found yet. Our goal is to give them a way out and to get justice for them. If you are a victim or someone you know may be a victim, please reach out to the Sheriff's Office, to the Madison Heights Police Department, or to your local police. There's much more work to do. Prosecutor McDonald is proud to be partnered with the task force and proud of the work the task force is doing to stop human trafficking in Oakland County. So Damon Napier is charged with a total of 5 counts. He's charged with 1 count of human trafficking enterprise resulting in injury, commercial sexual activity. That's a 15-year felony. He's charged with 1 count of transporting a person for the purposes of prostitution, a 20-year felony. 1 count of accepting the earnings of a prostitute, a 20-year felony. Pandering, which is a 20-year felony, and criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree, which is a 15-year felony. That's in a case out of the city of Southfield. And then the defendant is charged in an additional complaint with another 5 counts being, again, human trafficking enterprise resulting in injury, 15-year felony, transporting a person for the purpose of prostitution, a 20-year felony, accepting the earnings of a prostitute, a 20-year felony, criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree, 2 counts, those are 15-year felonies.
Questions?
So is this 10 counts total? 5 and 5, right?
Yes.
Can we get his age and do you have a mugshot available?
Yeah, we'll get you a mugshot, and his age is, sorry? Yep, 61.
61, and what city is he from?
Wayne County, I don't know what particular city, do you know? Redford.
Redford. Can you give
Yes.
us, I know it's obviously still an open investigation, but can you give us like some details, like how long did he hold these women? What were the circumstances surrounding it?
I don't know, we'll get too deep into the case, we'll probably leave that for the court and the prosecutor. I think the charges kind of speak for themselves, obviously it was a horrendous position these ladies were in, and we're super glad to be part of holding them accountable for that behavior.
Can you talk about how they were found and where they were found?
Do you want to get into where they were when we picked them up? I don't know. Again, I want to be cautious about details because I don't want to do anything that puts the case out too soon and leave that for the prosecutor by and large.
You said that he had a very lengthy criminal history.
Yes.
You talked about kidnapping and drugs, I wrote down. Does he have a past criminal history of sex trafficking people?
Well, one that I did notice was a kidnapping in California. So, I don't know what the purpose was back in that case. Obviously, you have to pull that case and it goes back a long time. But certainly seems the components of what he was doing with these poor young ladies is evidenced in his prior criminal behavior. You know, kidnapping, drugs, other kinds of things.
Got one shot. You slide over, just click on the screen. This one? Yeah.
And spelling of his first name?
DAMON.
Thank you.
Yes?
How many more victims do you believe he may be?
It's hard to say. We do very strongly believe there's other victims out there, but it's hard to say how many there are.
Do you believe he was working with other people?
The possibility, you know, obviously this information came from breadcrumbs from other stuff, so. We don't want people to think they can get away with it or give them a tip we're looking.
Sheriff, can you just elaborate a little bit more on how the task force actually goes out and finds the suspects in these cases?
Well, sometimes we can, you know, I mean, obviously it's in its infancy, but basically, you know, part of what we encourage the public to do is be aware of the signs and symptoms of what trafficking looks like, and don't be afraid to call. If they see somebody acting in a way that reflects some of those things that I talked about, they're cowering, they're submissive, they don't have the ability to move about alone, they don't have their own identification, they don't, you know, those kinds of things. Don't be afraid to call in a tip and say, this felt odd or looked odd, and here's where it was and the time, and I got a license plate or didn't. You know, then we can begin to run some of that down. Sometimes one case leads, breadcrumbs lead to another.